better than two.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Sweet Home Catoosa. I'm Richard Tharp, and today we are honored enough to have Mike Cameron, State Representative for District 1 with us. Mike, welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be anywhere after the election.
Yeah, so for folks at home, this is the day after election, so we have finally gotten through that. I tell you, I'm just happy that we have results. I think a lot of folks were worried.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were, and I've watched this pretty closely, and especially during early voting. I was watching, and I listened to a lot of people that I trust online, and I knew I had a very strong suspicion we were going to have a great night last night, and we did, and I'm glad because the people deserve this after the 4 years we've been through with the Biden administration and the Harris administration and the Obama administration. And,
yeah, no, definitely. And, we had 76% turnout here in Catoosa County, so congratulations, everybody. Well done. And I think that's what they talked about nationwide. There was groundswell. There was folks that were just fed up, like you said.
Yeah, we had almost 74 in Walker, but 2 weeks ago we were at 19%, and my team took some action. We were buying. We bought a billboard. We were doing commercials in both counties. We did a mailer to get people out to vote. There was enthusiasm. We just channeled it, and people were wanting President Trump back in office. And in my commercials, I didn't talk about my opponent because he's pretty much non-existent. I tell people I couldn't pick him out of the lineup, and most people in the district couldn't either. So I focused on Vice President Harris and her policies and what would happen if she was elected. And it struck a tone with people, and people came out to vote.
They did. Yeah, well, I mean, like everybody else, these last 3.5 years, almost 4, there's some pain that comes with us in our pocketbooks and everything else. So, nobody wanted another 4 years.
No, I think people were weary of the whole thing, and she never gave a straight answer pretty much on anything. And I think the term word salad, I'm real wary about eating salads now because I don't want to eat a word salad.
Definitely.
I'm pretty much straightforward. If you ask me a question, I'm going to give you an answer. I'm not going to talk about the color of the wallpaper or whatever. People deserve better than that.
Then they want straight answers.
They want straight answers. They want help. They want to know what we've done. And in the legislature, we've done a lot. As I pointed out, we reduced the state income tax. We've given income tax rebates. We gave a property tax rebate in 2023. We worked with the governor to take off the gas tax 3 different times to give people some relief and put money back in people's pocket. And it helped businesses with that because what we did, people would buy gas and then they'd get and buy groceries and go eat somewhere, and come into Georgia from Alabama or Tennessee in my district. And so we generate some extra revenue for people as well, for businesses.
I think exactly. The state has done, to me, more for us than the federal level has, obviously, the last 3.5 years. But in general, the state legislature continues to answer and listen to folks. Yeah. So now, where is your area? I know you're walking. Go ahead.
I start at the H3 city limits on Missionary Ridge, where it goes into Walker County. I go from there, Rossville, Chattanooga Valley, Lookout Mountain. Then I go south through Kensington, down through most of Lafayette. I go over the mountain, and I have all the independent state of day, all the way to Sand Mountain. So I go from Lookout Mountain to Sand Mountain to Pigeon Mountain, kind of.
Wow.
So it's probably about 400 square miles.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. I've always talked about it. It seems like we're up here in the corner, and, sometimes we feel lost. We talk about it all the time, but Chattanooga, the news doesn't cover us unless something really bad happens. Yeah. We just don't have a way day to day to do what we're doing right now and talk to the citizens and say, hey, here's Mike Cameron, and, here's what he's wanting to talk about with you. And I think it's important. I think we starve for more information because we just don't get enough of it with our community.
No, I do a spot in Dade County every Friday morning on KWIN, WKWN, with Evan Stone. I do about 8 to 10 minutes, and we talk about things that are going on. And he gets into Walker County. But I also do some things for the radio station in Lafayette. But I'm out talking to people. I pretty much work 7 days a week. So if my phone rings and somebody's got a a pothole or they've got some kind of problem, I'm working on that. And I also work with federal partners and people that are in different parties. We all understand that we got to work together because we have the same constituents, and working with them to solve problems. Like, for example, right now the federal budget has $2.3 million for the city of Rossville to start replacing sewer pipes. Congresswoman Green helped us over in Dade County for a filter on the water system. We're trying to replace water pipes in Dade County up the Lookout Mountain in New Salem. They have their concrete and asbestos, which were good 60 years ago. People didn't know.
Sure.
But now we're trying to replace those and do bigger valves and bigger, for fire department and those kind of things. So we're working on that. We ran water this year. We got an ARC grant. We have a team. We work together, the economic development people in Northwest Georgia and in Trenton. We work together, and we got an ARC grant, which is Appalachia Regional Commission, to run water to Trenton Pressing. They make BMW parts, and two German gentlemen bought it, sight unseen 4 years ago. It was Gill Manufacturing, and so they decided to build a 100,000 square foot expansion. They took a company that was almost broke, and now they're sending parts all over the world. They make the front of golf carts over there and send them to China, and they can do it better and cheaper than they can make them in China. So they needed water. They need like an 8-inch water line run all the way up to their new place, and they're going to build another 100,000 square feet on the back of that plant. So we work together on projects like this to try to help. One thing is the Senator Mullis worked my first term. He worked on a rural internet grant, and Dade County got some money, and Trenton Telephone ran rural internet lines because a lot of folks in Dade County didn't have high-speed internet. Well, I got a call one day from the telephone company saying, we need to run internet into Cloudland Canyon. There's some homes, people never sold their property there on the left side going down. And so they had to run the internet. So I called the commissioner of natural resources, and we worked out a deal. And now that entire park, all the little houses and the little things there, the interpretive center, the rangers, out the places, they all have high-speed internet. It's the best park in Georgia, and now it has high-speed internet in there for people who come to camp, because people still work when they're
absolutely yeah.
And they want to stay connected. So those are kind of things I work on. I fix stop signs. Stop signs get knocked down, and I called the GDOT to fix stop signs. I actually ran over a stop sign off of 136 one morning going to the radio station. The sun got in my eyes and I couldn't see. And I have almost a new car, and so I hit it with the front end of the car. And those stop signs do fall when you hit them. So now they've got an orange barrel there with the stop sign on top of it, and I haven't hit it in 2 months. So I have a little thing, a mark that I don't hit the stop sign. So.
Mark's safe that day.
Yeah, so we do stuff like that. We put flashers up the top of 136 going into Trenton, because big trucks are coming off there thinking they go straight when it actually curves. And so there were a lot of wrecks there. So now we have flashers with solar panels on them. So when people coming up and going down, they know that there's a curve there. So we try to solve practical problems that people have as well.
But I think from a state representative standpoint, I think that's where a lot of your everyday citizens don't realize all that you do for them, right? But you're one of those, you do a lot, but it's sight unseen to these folks because you're fixing problems and doing things. And so without it being on the news and things like that, who would know, right?
Yeah.
But you're doing a lot for the citizens.
I do, and people will call me, and then we get back with them. We do constituent services, a lot of things where you have problems with an agency, state government, or something happens where you need some kind of help. But we have people call our office, unfortunately, don't have food. And I know places that have food. We work with food banks and other people to try to help those. It's by the grace of God go I. I could be in that same spot, so I understand that. So I just got off the phone with my admin. Someone needed help on an issue, and so we try to get them to the right government agency and make sure that if they need help, or if I need to make a phone call and say, hey, this person needs help, that they get the help they need.
Yeah, that's huge for communities to have that resource and reach out. Here again, I just think some folks don't realize it is a resource.
Yeah, it is a resource.
Your state representative is a huge resource.
Yeah, and I answer my own phone calls and my own emails too. So a lot of people, when they get an email back from me, they go, well, I've never gotten an email back from somebody, and it's like me. And I'm just an ordinary guy. I put my shoes on one shoe at a time, just like anybody else. And my job is to go out and serve. I'm a servant. That public servant is the term. But yeah, we're not in this for like money or glory, you know, because I drive back and forth pretty much every day when I'm in Atlanta and working. I don't stay down there because I want to be in touch with people up here.
Sure.
And it's easy to get lost down there.
I'm sure. Yeah, my wife will tell you, I just despise Atlanta traffic. So she said things that she'd wanted to go down there for. And I'm like, did they have it in Nashville? It's a little more tolerable.
Yeah, it's a little more tolerable, but
it's still bad.
Yeah. But I do Peach Pass. So during Peach Pass, you can bypass some of the traffic in the mornings early. And Steve Tarvin does the same thing, but we get going about 5 o'clock in the morning. So by the time you get to Atlanta, it's 6:30, and the traffic's just really starting to
beat it. Yeah, smart. That's what a lot of folks have to do when you have to commute back and forth like you. So what were some of the big things last year, which is this year, but, you know, in the legislation, what happened for folks up here that kind of impacted us? And then what are you looking forward to next year?
Yeah. There were a lot of things. The reduction of the income tax was something we've been debating. We wanted to do it quicker, accelerate the reduction quicker. The Senate didn't want to do it, so we ended up doing it over several years. But last year we had a surplus, so the governor said, why don't we just lower it from 4.79 to 4.39? Let's do it this year like that. And so we dropped it. That was one big thing. We worked on a lot of legislation. One of them was after Laken Riley was killed. We had a bill. My friend Jesse Petrie, who's chairman of Human Relations and Aging, had a bill that penalized sanctuary cities. You know, if you're in a sanctuary city and you're not following the law, a person can go back and ask for their property taxes back. Also, the sheriffs don't enforce the law in arresting these folks. They can be prosecuted. And, you know, we're pro-law enforcement down there. We're very pro-law enforcement. But these certain cities like Athens, we can't have that because Laken Riley, beautiful young lady, should have never been killed. But this gentleman was out and did what he did. And we have to stand up for people on things like this. So that was an emotional thing that we did. And it was pretty big. So we've done a number of things like that. And sometimes we get emotional over these things because it's just we see the people that are hurt, and we totally understand some of these things are happening. One of the things that we did, I'm on the agriculture committee, and that we had a bill to protect American farmland. Chinese, the Russians, and other people are buying our farmland and taking it out of circulation. So we had a bill. It finally got it through. Brendan Beach in the Senate and his son-in-law, David Clark, who's a friend of mine and his seatmate, they worked on this bill and got it passed where you can't, a foreign government can't buy farmland if they're on the enemies list. And there's like 5 or 6 countries that are on the enemies list. And that was pretty exhausting, and we did that. We also passed school choice, which was it's something that needed to happen. We have schools in Georgia, the 20% that are in the bottom, kids just start learning. And so they should have its choice if they're in a school that's failing to go somewhere else and take their state money. They can't take the federal money with them, but they take the state money with them. So we passed a school choice bill and it's going to start probably, I think, in 25. They've got to work out the details and get the thing set up. But there were a number of Republicans in 23 who didn't vote for it because they thought they were standing up for the school system. But you know, it comes down to this: we want every child to get a good education, and if they're in a school system or environment where they're not getting a good education, then we got to do something to fix that. One member switched parties, Misha Maynard, because she talked about she talked about the fact that her mother sent her across town and to get a better education in Atlanta. So she switched parties to be a Republican the last year that she was in there, and we got it passed. So
it's just so important, and you know as well as I do, if these kids don't get a good education and they get out, if they even finish, they're not probably going to have a productive life, right?
They're not. And one of the things that Representative Tarvin and I worked on is a program with a Cherokee library system called Time with Teacher. And what happens is a student can go to the library or their parent, grandparent, and say, Billy or Sally needs some instruction in reading or math or whatever. And an actual teacher will tutor them for an hour. The teacher gets paid $25 and the student gets help. And it's been very, very productive. In fact, we don't have enough tutors in Trenton right now. And so we're trying to find more tutors and to help just bring the kids up. And we're not trying to be judgmental of the education system. But if we have children that aren't learning, we've got to take steps to get them there. And that's a private way, it's privately funded right now, of helping students get better. Because you can't read, you can't learn. You can't learn, you can't earn.
That's right.
And so we're trying to make sure that, I want to make sure that children have the same opportunities I did growing up. And I was fortunate. My mother worked in a mill in downtown Chattanooga. It's called Mill City now, but it was Standard Coosa Thatcher. And she sacrificed and bought me a set of World Book encyclopedias. And so I sat in the floor. I didn't know any better. I just sat in the floor and learned how to read them. Well, I went to school and they tested, the achievement test, I think is what they called it. And they called my mom one day and said, this boy's in the first grade and he's reading at the 8th grade level. And she said, well, he better be because he's sitting there reading those books all day. So we want every child, and they don't have to read tons of books, but we want them to be able to read and to comprehend.
Correct.
And another thing we did last year is a group of us went to Atlanta and advocated for a career academy in Walker County. They will help Walker and Dade County because we're running out of auto technicians, we're running out of plumbers, we're running out of welders and those kind of people, and we need more tradespeople. And if we don't start training them now, a lot of those folks are aging out and they're my age. You don't want me fixing your toilet or you don't want me doing any welding for you. I promise me, you don't. So we're trying to develop progress. Not every child wants to go to a 4-year college, and that's okay. You can make a huge living as a welder or as an auto technician. And if we can get these young people trained and get them out in the workforce, we're all the better. If they want to go to a 4-year college, that's fine. Go to a 4-year college.
Correct.
But we need to train people. So that's coming up in Walker County. Hopefully in the next 6 months to a year, they'll have that going where we can start funneling people. And Dade County students are going to participate in that as well. So,
yeah, no, because, we've got our career academy and it's new to Catoosa County. And I've toured it. I've had Marissa on here to talk about the opportunities because you're right. Our last 2 kids, she went to Dalton State and went on, and she works for Unum now. So she got a 4-year degree, but our son didn't want to go that route, right? So he went into the Air Force, but he learned a skill and a trade, and he got out. He had that skill and trade, and he's applied it. Same thing as he could have got into college and career academy, that type of thing. Because you're right. I was reading something the other day. They're talking about the next millionaires will be plumbers and electricians and people like that because they'll be able to put whatever price on it because there's just not a lot of them out there. Yeah. And they're going to be so important to keep growing.
Yeah, and I work with the Georgia auto dealers a lot talking about this. And so we're trying to connect the two together where the auto dealers, they see these young people coming out of high school, they've got the training, they know how to read, they know how to write, but they also have a couple of years training, auto mechanics. They can go to work for a dealer. And the dealer can say, okay, I have Nissan or whatever, and we'll send you to Nissan school. And they'll be much quicker into the workforce.
Yeah, no, that's huge because you're right. Auto mechanics, I hear, up at BMW, I was talking to a mechanic one day who worked there, and he said, like you, I came in, didn't have a lot of experience, but they sent me to school, and I got a lot of experience, and I've been there a long time. I like my job. It's just an opportunity. But he had a passion for that, right? So he had a way. He wasn't one of those, like you said, that was interested in going back to 4 more years of school. He wanted to get out and kind of go after his passion, which for him was automotive. Yeah. So I think that's just huge. And it's great for like community, right? If you've got a business coming in and they got a need, well, like Sheriff Sisk, he got a pod put in, where we're going to have criminal justice and we're going to have kids go through the college and career academy, they graduate, they come right into the workforce, work for the sheriff's department, but outside companies coming in could do the same thing, right? We've got a need in welding or whatever, and you could put a pod in and create that workforce.
Yeah. And related to that, one of the big problems that I deal with is mental health issues in our jails. And Dade and Walker County have had numerous issues this summer that I dealt with where, for example, one lady had been waiting for an evaluation for a whole year, and she got in a fight and broke her hip, and they were going to send her back to the jail after she had surgery. And I'm like, no, we're not. This lady doesn't need to be in this environment. And it's unfair to the jailers, too, because they're not mental health professionals. And so I've gotten some folks to come up here and meet with some of our people. And I think we're going to get the commissioner to come up and meet with some of our sheriffs on the other side of the mountain and talk through these issues, because we've got to have rooms in Georgia for mentally ill, because we're sticking them in jails and they're just staying there. And that's not the place for them. Sure. It's cruel.
Yeah, no, and I heard through the election, I heard certain candidates talk about the fact that we needed some of that up here in Northwest Georgia. And, I'm sure that's pretty much holds true for statewide. I mean, everybody's got a need for that, and it's not something that's talked about as much as it should be, and we need to get something done with it. So thank you for that.
Yeah, this is one of those things that we closed Milledgeville maybe, I don't know, it was 15, 20 years ago. So there's no place really to go. And they really can't take them to Chattanooga. So they end up having to transport them to Dalton or to Rome. And then sometimes they send them back. So, because I've been in the jails, I've gone into the cell, I've been in both jails. I've been through there seeing people have got problems, and that's not an environment, and it creates stress for the jailers as well when they have to deal with that, and because you get some people that unfortunately have problems, and it's 24 hours a day, and it's unfortunate. So that's something we're going to look at. Is trying to find a solution to fund rooms, build rooms, whatever we need to do to handle that. I had a couple of bills this past year. One of them, it was a bill to change the incest law. We had a situation in one of our counties where there was a gentleman that took advantage of his step-granddaughter, and the law didn't cover it. So we wrote a bill, quick bill, passed the House 166-0, and it hung up in the Senate for 2 years, and we can't figure out why. And so we didn't get that bill through, and so I'm going to start over on that one. We also have a bill, I had a bill about doxing, where people, law enforcement people down in Atlanta, we had a shooting a couple of years ago down at the place they were building a training center in Atlanta, outside Atlanta. And what happened was a group of people started releasing information on law enforcement people, their children, and all that stuff. So it would make doxing a felony, a 10-year sentence. So we're going to go back around with that one. I had never been through judiciary really and with a bill, and I did 4 judiciary hearings, so I learned a lot about the judicial process. So that's one of the things. Another thing, I'm on the labor committee. We had the bill from the governor where if you accept economic incentives, that you have to have a secret vote for a union. You can't do card check. So that bill was controversial, and I was working on my bill before the Judiciary Committee upstairs, and so I was running back and forth to both hearings, and then my chairman texted me. He said, "I need you down. It's 7 to 7. I need a vote." So I literally ran back downstairs, voted for the bill, get it out of committee to get it to the floor. So some things like that just happened too. And that bill subsequently passed.
Yeah, before we went on there, I was asking Mike. I said, how is it down there? Because as a citizen, you'd think if I was newly elected and you're not, you've been in for a while. So, we were talking about that, but it seems like it would be so daunting to try to learn the process of how things go. And that's the great thing about the citizens over there. I know 80% of the citizens over there so overwhelmingly wanted you back down there because you're more effective every time you go for your citizens because you know the way things work, the right people to do and partner with. And so it's a benefit when they send you back again. So,
again, Stan, I'm conservative, but I don't yell and scream and holler and pull my hair out to get stuff done and call people names. I just don't do that. I never have. But you learn to work with folks. I'm surrounded by Democrats. I mean, I've got a lady sits next to me, Democrat in front of me, and we get along. We just don't get along with politics. But we get along. Everybody has birthdays. We bring cupcakes or we do silly stuff. We'll be sitting there in the middle of a debate, and everybody's looking at everybody. And we make silly faces at each other and but then when it comes time to vote, we vote different. It doesn't mean that we can't get along. It doesn't mean that we can't talk to people and then try to understand them and get along with them. But a lot of times in Atlanta, the Democrats vote as a group on bills, and we understand that. And their leadership wants them to vote as a group. And even though some of them would probably like to vote for some of our bills, they can't because of the peer pressure.
Wow.
So
Yeah, that's I could only imagine. But at the end of the day, right now, we're back as a red state after the election yesterday. The House is red, correct, and the Senate.
Yeah, my understanding, the House, I think we're going to keep the House. The Senate is definitely red, and we may end up with as many as 55 seats. The House, some of those seats are pending because of California. The People's Republic of California hadn't counted all the ballots, and New York as well. So we got to wait, but I'm optimistic they will have the whole thing, and President Trump will be able to go in with an agenda, hit the ground running, and get some things done immediately. I think they learned from the last time President Trump was in office, and they had a majority, but they quibbled.
They did.
They quibbled, and they couldn't get anything done. So I think if we can get a clear focus on things that accomplished and then just start knocking them off. And he's a businessman. He knows how to do that.
He does. And I think like you, now that you know, right, you know what you know and you know how things go, you're more effective. And I think same thing will happen on the national level. He's been there. He kind of knows the process. I think we will get more done. And luckily, we'll be able to, have cooperation in the House and the Senate and get some hopefully great legislation pushed through on the national level and get us some relief here locally.
Well, because that's what we tried to do the last few years is we tried to govern in opposition to what's going on in Washington to try to give people relief. Because people are hurting. They can't afford groceries. They can't afford gas to go back and forth to work. If we open the pipeline back up and start drilling and gas prices fall, then transportation costs are going to fall, which means food prices are going to fall. It's a domino.
It is. It is a domino effect. And we saw what happens when it doesn't go the right way. I mean, it escalated and in a hurry. It escalated in our grocery store at the gas pumps, but it escalated here locally as well, right? With, when our county governments have to still procure and buy and do things that are effective on a national level, and then it makes the budgets harder, and then the citizens in the property tax side have to feel it. So, definitely. It all trickles down.
Yeah, and in Georgia, we have to have a balanced budget. That's the only thing constitutionally we're required to do. We have to have a balanced budget. And sometimes getting there is a lot of fun. Because you sit there with appropriations and you have all these people coming to your appropriations subcommittee hearings, like I'm on Human Services, and they want this, and they want that, and they want this, and they want that. So you've got to be able to prioritize what you can get done this year and what you can get in the budget. And then the House and the Senate have to agree. And what happens is they don't agree, and then there's a conference committee formed, and they sit down and say, okay, I understand that, but I'm not going to do that. And people over here go, I understand that, but we're not going to do this. And so it's give and take, and then we come up with a budget. And our chairman, Matt Hatchett, does a great job with the budget. He's from Dublin, Georgia. He does a great job because he's got to be able to see all the sides. And there's people he likes, but he just can't. Sorry, we can't put that in the budget this year. Sure. And the same way with Senator Tillery. And then they come together and start trying to work through this, and that's when we make the sausage. And
so when does session run?
Okay, we start the first or the second Monday in January. We'll get sworn in that day. We'll work at first week, probably 3 or 4 days, and then we'll go through the end of March. We work 40 days. The last day is called sine die, the end. That day, usually we work 14, 16 hours on the floor, so we're all punch drunk and dead by the time we finish. But we'll get set up. The new people will get in office about 2 weeks after session starts usually, and they'll get their committee assignments, and we'll start meeting with committees. Agriculture, we've got a lot to do this year because of the Hurricane Helene. We've got a lot of farmers that are hurting down south. They were hurting already, and now, for example, pecan growers, there was estimated $452 million worth of damage to pecan growers this year. It's going to take $72 million to replant all the trees, and it's going to take years to be able to get that. Well, how do those pecan farmers hold on? Sure. And it's the same way. We have a big citrus business in Georgia. People didn't know that. We had a former FBI agent. She retired to Middle Georgia and planted samsui, something. It's like an orange grapefruit combination, and they grew well. And so other people said, well, I'd like to grow some of those. So all of a sudden, people start growing, and then we got tens of thousands of citrus plants down in Georgia. We've got grapefruit and all kinds of things, oranges. And so those were damaged. So those just don't come back overnight.
No, I grew up in Florida, and I talk about that. I remember back when I was a kid, we'd go to Disney, and Disney was new, and this was in the 70s, and I can remember driving down, there was orange groves everywhere you could see, and all of a sudden we had some rough winters, and that cold stretched down further than it had in a long time, and it killed off those groves.
Yep.
So you go down through there now, and it's just not the same anymore, right?
Yep.
It never did recover.
Yep.
And so it's important, yes, pecans and all those, it's important to get that back, but it is hard to hold on because for the maturity of the tree to come back and to produce and all that, I mean, it takes a lot of time.
It takes a while. And my chairman of agriculture, Robert Dickey, he's a great guy. He has Dickey Farms, which is the largest peach grower in Georgia. They're outside of Macon, a place called Musella. I think I pronounced that right. And last year, about a week before session ended, he got a call that they were going to have a freeze that night. He went home and he lost 75% of his crop. But he was just as even keel about it. He says, that's what happens. You can't do anything about it. You just get ready for next year. And but this year they come back and had a bumper peach crop. And so it's that way. But we were worried about farmers anyway down in South Georgia because a lot of them is just getting tired of going to the bank and borrowing for next year. And some of them were just thinking about giving it up. And we don't need those people to give up because unlike Stacey Abrams, food doesn't just come from a grocery store. It comes from the ground. God makes it. And we have to take care of the people who grow it. And if we don't, then we don't have food. It's pretty simple.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love to hear success stories about that, where the state does step in and help folks and keep the family businesses alive because that's what matters to.
And I'm not a big government guy, but in some cases, in the farming agriculture industry, those folks, they're up against the wall, and we need them to keep producing. They produce Clay Perkle, one of my colleagues, he produces butter beans, and Sam Watson, one of our senators, he grows tons of cabbage. So you want them to be able to grow their crops without having a lot of stuff done. Government doesn't create jobs, but we can make an environment where jobs can flourish, even in agriculture. And that's what we're trying to do with what we do. Sometimes we get it wrong, and it happens, and we have to fix it. But we try our best to limit government. We need to limit regulations. I think President Trump's going to do that with Elon Musk, is limit regulations and get government out of the way of business and let business do what business does. You know how to build a house. I don't. And I don't need to put a bunch of stuff that prohibits you from building a house or makes it harder for you to do it.
It takes longer, right? And time is money. Or, they put regulations on so many things that you've got to do. And I've seen it through the years. They'll put a regulation on a building code or something that really just doesn't make sense, but it just cost-wise, it increases the cost of something that really just didn't need to be there. And that cost gets passed along the consumer. And now if you talk to people, think about it. I mean, a lot of folks are saying the American dream of me owning a house is kind of out of reach because prices have gotten so high and interest rates where they are. And so that interest rates are another thing. I'm hoping we get that going in the right direction like we've already seen. And here again, that lets that American dream of owning a home become a reality again.
Yeah, exactly. And, homes aren't as cheap as they were when we were young. You could buy a nice house for $50,000, and now that house is probably $250,000, $300,000, and that the average person just can't afford that.
Yeah, the younger generation, like my son, he's 24. Yeah, I mean, they look around and they're like, wow, it's crazy. It's just hard. It's cost prohibitive for me to try to go buy a house because the payment's just going to be so much. And there's other factors that come into that. I mean, taxes, insurance, Florida suffers from bad, insurance down there is horrible, right? Because of all the storms they have and trying to get carriers in the state, and the ones that are there just charge a lot of money. So there's a lot of factors that go into all that. But that's where Georgia does a great job, keeping those regulations, like you said, get out of the way and let folks do what they do and make it more affordable.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we try to do because the worst nightmare you could ever have is having too many regulations, too many hoops to jump through, because a lot of businesses will say, I can do business elsewhere. I'll take my jobs and go to Tennessee or I'll go somewhere else.
Just ask California, right?
Just ask the People's Republic of California. This is true. I shouldn't be that way.
But the people flood. Businesses have flooded out of there because of overregulation, overtaxed, and it's just not cost prohibitive anymore, right?
Well, you look at New York. I think Remington moved out of New York. I think they're moving to Alabama or one of the states. So a lot of gun manufacturers really are targeted, and they're moving down south because they can do business.
Yes.
They can do what they know how to do, and
offer their product at a fair price.
At a fair price.
The public can benefit from being able to have those products.
Exactly. So that's what we try to do. But like I say, we're there 40 days and over 3 months, and after that, then we're out in their district. And I'm usually, on the road. I bought a car in April, and I've already got almost 20,000 miles on it.
Wow.
Because I'm here, there. I go to meetings. I go places, and then people call me. They come to their house, or look at a ditch, or look at a road, or stuff, and I just go. I don't know any better, so I just go.
Well, you and I share in that. So obviously, you've been in office, and I just got elected to office, and so I signed up for the same thing you did, and I kind of have that same approach you do. It's a no-nonsense approach. I want to govern the way I want to be governed, and I grew up in the Reagan era back in the '80s, and so I saw what that looked like as far as get out of the way with business and let things go, and no overregulation, no overtaxing of the citizens, and things of that nature. We're here to enhance a citizen's life. We're not here to get in the way.
Government can be immoral. It really can. Government can be immoral in trying to tell people how to live. I was in Atlanta. The Georgia Public Policy Foundation had a gentleman come down named Noah Roth from the National Review magazine, and he's talking about that liberals are really the new Puritans because they're trying to tell us what we can eat, how we can, how we sleep, how we live, blah blah blah. They're trying to control how we do it, and we need to get out of the way. We may not agree with someone how they do things, but it's America. You got some freedom.
Sure.
And I don't want somebody telling me I can't eat peanut butter sandwiches at 12 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't. So what do you hear most from citizens, during the course of a year? Is there something that always a common thread that most folks gravitate toward talking with you and asking for help?
I'll tell you one thing. People sometimes just want somebody to talk to. They want their voice heard. Sometimes they know you can't do anything about a certain situation, but if you listen to them and talk to them, and they know you're sincere about listening to them, that goes a long way. We get problems with roads, taxes. Always, I can't pay my taxes. I had a call just as before I came in here. A gentleman is 2 years behind on his taxes, and to come find out he was in another city. It's another representative thing, but he doesn't know what to do because he's going to be 3 years behind, and then they'll take his property and those kind of things. You hear stories like that. You get people that are sick and they don't know where to go. A lot of senior citizens, and we have an agency, the Northwest or the area Agency on Aging, I think is what it's called. Down in Rome, I'll call them a lot of times, and they'll be able to help a senior citizen navigate the system if they've got a problem. And we call them a lot because there's some people that come to wit's end and they don't know where to go for help with Medicaid or help with other issues that they need help with. And they do a good job down in Rome. And so we try to get people to the right people to deal with the problems.
So how do folks, and this is general, this is you, but just as a state representative, if somebody's watching, they're like, how do I know who my state representative is from where I live right now, and how can I get in touch with them? Where would they go for that?
You could go to the General Assembly site and the Georgia General Assembly site, and you can go on there and try to find the area of country you live in and find the representative who represents that. Sometimes you can call somebody down there and they'll point you in the right direction. You'll give them their address and they'll say, oh yeah, you're Mike Cameron's person. You're in Trenton, Georgia. And I get my cell phone number out. Most people know where I live because this morning, 5 o'clock, people were honking their horns passing by my house, so they know where I live. So it's no secret. And I answer my phone and I put my cell phone number out. Some people don't do that, but I do it. I figure people need help. They need to be able to call me and talk about stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of folks watching, you may know someone or you may be someone that needs help that Mike talked about today. And, there is help for you out there. We just have to put you in the right place and with the right person. And that's what this is all about. That's why I do this. We talk about things that matter to folks in the counties. And, I've always said it, it's called Sweet Home Catoosa, but Catoosa, Walker, Dade, Chattooga, Whitfield, we're all up here together. And it's a team up here. Then we've got to, partner together for a lot of great things.
And what Steve Jarman and I in particular, he'll get a call and it's one of my people. He'll go ahead and handle it and get him to the right person. I do the same thing with him. And he'll call me and say, hey, this guy called me from over, Lafayette, and I just went ahead and got him to the right person. Or I'll call him and say somebody down in Tunnel Hill called me and they need help, and I directed them to the right people. So we just work together and try to help each other. We don't do territories. It's just kind of silly. We just try to help each other.
Yeah. No, that's great representation. Here again, that's the reason your fine folks over there sent you back for 2 more years.
Yeah. Yeah. So and it's not lost on me. I grew up in a little trailer park in Lookout Valley, and here I am now, 65 years old, and a lot of the people that I grew up with are in Trenton and Wildwood and places like that. Some know the representatives, so they thought they got rid of me when we were growing up, but no, you got me now. And same thing in Walker County. I spent my first few years, I grew up in the Peach Grove off of Schmidt Road, Peach Orchard, and so I know a lot of people from being around forever, and worked at Blue Cross for 30-something years, and people know me from that. So I get emails, calls from people just all the time. Hey, do you know who you can call for this? Or, I says, yeah, I know who to call. And I'll call. Sometimes I'll make a phone call for them and then get somebody to call them back in a government agency because they know if I'm calling, I'm going to follow up. And that's important, too, because I usually follow up. Sometimes my admin will do it, but sometimes I'll think, I helped Joe over there, but I wonder if he got the help he needed. So I'll call and, oh, yes, sir, we took care of that yesterday. Yeah. Or, no, we're going to take care of it.
I think you touched on 2 things there that you talked about. Is one, people want to be heard. Mm-hmm. And if they can be heard, that's half the battle because they just feel like nobody's listening.
Yep.
And then the second one is they just, we want somebody to contact. If I reach out, I just want somebody to contact me back. And I think for me, that was one of the other things too, coming from a business world. I mean, that's just every day. I mean, that's just common thing for us. When you have customers or you're in a customer business, you're Blue Cross, you're servicing customers, and I have a hospitality background. So I was just used to that. You're dealing with the customers, you're listening to their concerns or their problems, and you just handle them. And if you do that.
Well, and there's some people that just hurt. They've had a rough time, rough life. I had a lady in my district one day call me. I'd help get raccoons out of her ceiling, but her son was on drugs, and she said, Mike, I don't have anybody else. I said, you ain't gonna quit me, are you, Mike? I said, no, I'm not gonna quit you. And we tried to find some help for her. And he went one place and it didn't work out. But then I'd given her the name of several places. She found a place that took him, and they got him straightened up. But I do a lot of that because people sometimes they just want somebody to talk to, and I'll sit there and just listen to them because I work for them.
Yeah, no, I think that's the right way.
And they're my neighbors.
Yes, and that's it. That's what's important. You're part of the community, and they know you. You've been around the community for a long time, like you talked about, and they feel a comfort level with you too.
Yeah.
I know all too time. There's folks. I'll see them come to commission meetings or things like that, and they'll be up there voicing concerns, and somebody will say, how long do you live here in the county? Is, well, I've been here 6 months. Where'd you come from? And they'll, California, Florida, Ohio, or somewhere else. And the reason they moved is because it just wasn't an enjoyable place to live anymore.
Yep.
And they couldn't get anybody to listen to their concerns or things like that. So I think here in our communities, we do a better job of that, it seems like.
Well, I go to cheerleading competitions. I go to craft fairs. I pop up kind of like a mushroom after summer rain. You never know where you're going to see me. But seriously, like Dade County will have a Christmas fair the 7th of December. I'll be working the front desk, giving people their tickets and doing that stuff because I put myself out there. Or I'll go to the grocery store and people just stop me, and or a restaurant, whatever, and just do that. But I'll show up places that I did show up at a cheerleading competition on 9/11. It was over in Lafayette. They had it and they wanted me to come, so I show up over there for the cheerleading competition and talk to people. I go to New Salem had a craft show, so I do a lot of that.
Yeah, and it's important. I think we have had instances where you'll hear people say, I don't even know who this representative is.
Yeah.
And I've never even seen this representative in an area. And so it's like, wow. And, I think here again, if you're going to get in the job, you have to make yourself accessible.
Well, I handed out candy a couple of weeks ago. We had, in Dade County, we had trick or treat out the square, and I handed out candy to about 1,500 kids. And I had my sign out there in front of my little table, and people came by and they were talking about the tax reductions and things like that. Or they say, well, I can't stand Georgia government. They do this. And I'm like, no, wait a minute, let me tell you.
Sure.
But I talk to everybody, grandmothers, kids dressed as Superman, whatever. I talk to them all. And, you wear yourself out sometimes, but that this is, like I say, by the grace of God, I may need help someday from somebody.
Yeah, well, it makes an impression, and that's what I've always said is you may not realize at the time, but what you're doing makes an impression and stays with someone.
We're a bridge a lot of times for people. Some of the girlfriends will talk about a bridge over troubled water. That's what we are sometimes, and that's our purpose. And when I forget that's when they need to give me the hook and get me out of there.
Yeah.
So,
well, listen, I enjoy the time and enjoy the fact that you made some time to come sit here with us today. And, it's important I think we all get to know our neighbors.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for folks to understand what it is you do.
Yeah.
Because I think that sometimes doesn't get talked about enough as a state representative for your area. What it is you can do for the citizens and you do for the citizens on a daily basis. And so that's just not talked about enough. So thank you for coming today and sharing all that with us.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks, folks.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Swell. So till next time, have a great week. Thanks for watching.